Here we go. We're starting the addiction special of NFNLP. And last week I started and I gave a background of addictions. And I did one, excuse me, one little technique, the flip, about how your brain works. And, you know, thinking about something that used to be true and now is not, to be wherever it happens to be in your head, and put your addiction there. Then I kind of ran out of time because I'm respectful of your time and I don't want to take, you know, a full day or anything. We could do that. But what we'll do is give you a couple of the top techniques now besides the flip about addictions if you're going to work with people with addictions. So one of the things is, and you guys can see the screen. It says the behavior, internal behavior, internal process. Can you guys see that? Okay, cool. I'm trying something different. I didn't do a PowerPoint. I'm just putting up the little manual thing. And again, you know, in the NLP world, we talk about our internal processes, and our internal state affects our external behavior. Our external behavior will feed back into our internal processes and our internal state. And it's a constant loop. We know that. And addiction, this is very cognizant that we got to keep it in our forefront, because if the external behavior is an addiction, and if it's a substance addiction, alcohol, drugs, food, sugar, things like that, well, that when you bring it in, of course, that's going to change your internal states, because now you've got chemicals of some kind involved. Even if it's an external behavior that may not bring in a substance like pornography, gambling, or sex, it still changes your internal state, right? So it's this constant loop. So it's something to think about. So what we have to do is figure out what all do we have to change when it comes to this process, if it's an addiction. If you want to help somebody with an alcohol addiction, drug addiction, gambling, sex, food, whatever it happens to be, you know, it's just something to bear in mind that one of these is probably more out of whack than the other, right? Could be any of them, but one of them is probably more. Like said last week, a little bit across the board, when you're talking to people, you got to be aware of what they like. What is their primary way that they like to communicate? Is it visual? Is it auditory? Is it kinesthetic, right? So when you're talking to somebody, you got to gather that information so you could put what you're doing in their words. But here's the first part. I want to say this is kind of a tweaked up information gathering. I always teach what I call the short version. I call it the Metamodel. A lot of NLP people call it well-formatistic conditions or something. And it's just, you know, the question is, what do you want? What would that do for you? How will you know when you have it? Excuse me. How will this affect other people in your life? What stops you from having this already? What resources do you have? What resources you need? Pretty simple. It's pretty classic across the NLP, because by asking those questions, you gather that lost information that people delete, distort, and generalize. I'm not going to do a whole thing on the meta model, but all your communications you delete, you distort, and you generalize, because it makes communication faster. So when you ask people this question, what do you want? What would that do for you? It focuses their mind, which that alone is an intervention. That alone is an intervention. So when you're talking to somebody about addictions, what do you want, right? Well, and this is the fun part. A lot of people don't want to give up their addictions. They want to give up the repercussions of their addiction. You want to quit drinking? No, I just want to quit getting in trouble. Okay, now that, you know, now you got to kind of massage that around, right? Well, that's not uncommon in the addiction world. Do you want to quit gambling? No, I want to quit losing. Do you want to quit, you know, whatever it is? No, I want to get rid of the negative repercussions. So you kind of have to ask that a couple of times till they come to the conclusion that as long as they're drinking, they're going to be in trouble with the law or the drugs or whatever it is, right? So what do you want? Because a lot of times it'll begin to frame it, you know? But what would that do for you is just as is important, especially in the addiction world. You know, what would it do for you to stop drinking or drugging and stay out of trouble? What else would it do for you, right? And one way to think about it is, what would getting clean and sober, whatever it is, stop gambling, stop porn, but I'll usually stay with clean and sober. What would that do for you, right? But here's a question. This is just traditional for most of us. This is just to add, you know, what will that specifically do for you? But the question that's kind of needed in an addiction, what will you lose by making this change? You know, so this is where it gets to what stops you a little bit, right? Because what do you think you're going to lose if you quit drinking? Well, I'll never have fun again. That's common for a lot of addictions. I won't be able to relax. I won't be able to enjoy a good meal if I give up wine, whatever it is. So a lot of times people, you know, I'll lose all my friends because, you know, all my friends are my drinking buddies, you know? So what do you want? What would that do for you? What else would it do for you? What will getting clean and sober, stopping this addiction do for you? What do you think you're going to lose? You know, I just did this with somebody. It was about an eating thing. And what the lady figured out she would lose was that quiet time alone when she had the house to herself and would eat, you know, she meant to eat a little bit of ice cream, would end up eating like a half gallon. But she never really, she didn't really want to, that was almost unconscious, if that makes sense. So the first part is you ask them what they want, you know? And so then again, you ask them, how will they know when they have it? This is, and in addictions, it sounds silly, but how will they know that they're sober, clean, you know? Especially someone that hasn't experienced it in decades, it's a foreign concept to go, you know, they don't know, right, what it'll be like to, you know, get off work on Friday. Here's a common one, especially when I worked in like rehabs, you know, you get off work on Friday and you get paid and you still got money on Monday. What would that be like? Because it might have been years since that happened. They get off on Friday, they get their paycheck. A lot of times they cash the check at the bar. By Monday, they're broke and they're borrowing money. So then Friday, they get their paycheck. They have to pay back what they borrowed before. They're broke again. It keeps that cycle. What would it be like to actually still have money in your pocket on a Monday morning? What would it be like that your wife, husband, boyfriend, whatever, is still talking to you, right? That you don't have to spend 3 days trying to get back in the good graces. So, you know, how will you know when you have it? You want to ask. And what stops you from having this already? And how will this affect other people in your life? Now, how will this affect other people in your life kind of links back to what will you lose? Because a lot of the addictions are social in nature. You know, the drinking at the bar, the getting high with your friends, gambling, going to the casino, going to the slot machines. Even if they don't really talk, any of us go to Vegas. Albert and I have been to Vegas, you know, for a conference. Well, I go there a lot for conferences. And you could tell there's a lot of people, they're not really talking, but it's a social atmosphere. They could stay home and gamble online now, right? Why do they go to the casino? Well, first they could chain smoke, do all that crazy stuff, but it's somewhat social, right? So how will this affect other people in your life? What if all your friends are the guys you know from the bar? You go to the bar to watch football, baseball, basketball, whatever it is, you know, the women in your wine club, whatever it is. How will this affect other people in your life? You know? Do you care, right? You got to really get down to that, you know? And this is why you have to point out to most people in addictions, the people you think that would support you are going to be the ones to sabotage you. It's always common. Somebody comes into a 12-step kind of approach and, oh, it's going to be great because now I can be the designated driver. And yeah, you know what's going to happen within a couple of weeks? None of those people will want you around, right? Because you're not. And, you know, people will say things to you like, you're more fun when you were drinking, all this other stuff. So they have to become cognizant of it's going to change their social world, you know? What resources do you already have? Do you have any resources? This is one where I clash with people like lay therapists and even some psychologists that are anti-12-step because they go, well, you know, they don't need the meetings. Well, what if this person coming in doesn't have any resources on how to stay sober? You know, if they come from an alcoholic family, they started drinking as a teenager, they're 30-something years old, they've never not drank, they have no relatives that don't drink, they don't have friends that don't drink, and if they cut that out of their lives, now what? They may not have the resources. They don't have any models of what it's like not to drink. right? That could go back to the fear, you know, of what, I'll never have fun again, right? So it's something to think about. So you ask these questions, it kind of focuses your mind and their mind. And then what additional resources do you need to get there? And you know, how are you going to do it? What's the first step? So you kind of ask these questions, adding in, you know, make sure you link back that, finding out what is, because if somebody says what they want, and they, oh, I want to quit drinking. Well, what would that do for you? That's where they'd say, well, I'd stop getting in trouble. I'd stop getting DUIs. You know, I'd stop getting thrown out of the house. I wouldn't have to change jobs every, you know, few months, whatever it is. So you kind of begin to link these together, you know, and then I find it very important to figure out, well, what is their fear? What do they think they're going to lose if they give this up? Intellectually, they know that the drinking, the drugs, the gambling, the sex, whatever the addiction is, may become a problem, but what are they going to give up? So it's something to think about. So that's the first thing, is make sure you get them focused on what they need and or want. All right. So now what I'd like to do is a quick a technique. So, you know, when it's not uncommon, and this is my presupposition, I will admit this, right? It's not uncommon that when people are reaching out for an addiction, one of the first things they say is, part of me really wants to do this, but part of me fights it. Going back, and I'll tie this into, you'll hear this in, what do you want? I want to quit drinking. Well, what stops you is like, I'll never have fun again. So part of you wants to, but part of you is afraid to stop because I'll never have fun. I won't be able to relax, whatever it happens to be. So part of me wants to, and part of me doesn't. This is, you know, and it's been pointed out to me, I do have a bias toward this technique because I have the thinking that if you didn't have a conflict, a conscious, subconscious conflict, you probably would just change. Every day people stop smoking, quit drinking, change their diet, start exercise. They just change their life because everything lines up. They have no dissonance about the change. You know, they have no, part of me wants to, but I'm a little bit afraid. You know, I don't know if I can do it. Whatever it is. So you have this part of you that wants to and part of you that doesn't. Part of you that wants to, part of you that doesn't. That, to me, that comes up with, what do you want? What stops you? You know, and I set it up in the pre-frame. You know, as I've heard people say, an ounce of pre-framing is worth a pound of reframing. You know, I don't know who said that, but I loved it because it makes sense. If you set it up at the beginning, you don't have to fix it at the end. So I usually start as I'm asking the question, you know, would it be fair to say that party wants to do this? That's why you called me up. That's why you want to do this session, but something's fighting it. Would you think, does that make sense to you? And they go, yeah. Then I go through the questions, right? Now I've set it up and now I'm gathering information and it's starting to separate it clearly in their heads with, you know, what would that do for you? That's all conscious. I wouldn't get in trouble. I'd have money in the bank. Maybe I'd be able to, you know, my wife might talk to me or my husband, you know, whatever. I could get a new car, you know. What else would it do for you? Well, I have better health. I won't have indigestion. So that you're pre-stacking the deck for the part of them that wants to. And then when you already started at the very beginning, so part of you fights it. Well, what are you afraid you're going to lose? Oh, I won't have fun again. I won't have any friends. I don't know where I'll go at night. You know, what am I going to do on the weekends? So let's say it's somebody that's not in a relationship. Where am I going to go to meet people? You know, now you've really set it up to slide into the visual squash technique. And again, if everyone emails me, I will send you this little packet. If you have the basic, it's in there, so you don't have to worry about it. If you have the basic NLP or you did the essentials, it's in there. But if you don't, at least my version, just shoot me an email. I'll send you this little, whatever you call it, little mini manual. So anyway, so you've done that, right? So now I've set up, part of you wants to do it, part of you doesn't. Now I'll say, well, are you ready to do some work? And I'm going to jump in and I would do the visual squash. This is the first technique I would do. Well, technically the first technique is the Metamodel. Everybody forgets that because many times just asking the question focuses the person. It's not unusual that if you ask the questions and you really hammer down enough, they might already start to change without ever doing a process. You know, it was Phineas Quimby. Anybody here know Phineas Quimby? He was a watchmaker in the Boston area and a hypnotist. He's the guy that helped Mary Baker Eddy overcome an illness, and then she went on and created Scientology. He was the guy that Ernest Holmes, the guy that started New Thought, helped him. Okay, I'll make sure I get the emails. So yeah, Phineas Quimby and Mary Baker Eddy, Holmes, and his people went on to help the people that started like Unity Church. He's basically the godfather of the New Thought movement, right? Ernest Holmes started, Science of Mind, Mary Baker Eddy, Scientology. So it's kind of cool, right? Or Christian Science, not Scientology. That's the other guy who took the work of Phineas Quimby, by the way. Anyway, but Phineas Quimby, one of his sayings was the solution to the problem, you know, is in understanding it, having the answer. And he was very, you know, it was back in the, I forget, whenever it was, 1800s, and it was a very Christian approach, but he would ask the person, do they believe in Jesus? Yes, of course. Does Jesus want you to be happy? Yes. He did a lot of physical healing. Does Jesus want you to be healthy? Yes. Well, then you're basically, he would leverage, as we would say, almost like a Socrates kind of close. It's like, well, if this is it, and you say you're a Christian, then you're not following the dogma. And he would say the explanation is the cure, right? The understanding of the explanation. And so you've already set that up at the beginning with the information gathering. And then sometimes just going through the question, it's already started. Then almost everything on top of that is gravy. You know, I would still do it, but you might get a major shift. So anyway, the person has the part of them that wants to change, and then the part of them that fights it. So now I say, okay, let's do this, right? And so the first step is I have them think of a person, place, or thing that they love. Could be their spouse, their parent, their pet, right? And just a person, place, or thing that they truly love, and where do they feel that, right? And the reason I do that, sometimes people ask me, why do I do that when I do the visual squash, is I'm putting them into an emotional state to get started. And then hopefully a positive emotional state. Because I said, think of someone that you love. You know, if unconditionally is a word, unconditional love, someone you love, which usually makes you feel good. Going back to our internal state, internal processes, external behavior. Well, you're thinking about your dog or your cat or your wife or your whatever, right? So now you're in a good state. Then I have them tell me where they feel it, what color is it, you know, all of that. And that's to put them in a good state to get started, right? Because if you just jump in without that step, I found it's not quite as effective. So here's what I want everybody to do. This is the easiest way to do it. If you could think about, is there something in your life that part of you would like to do, but part of you fights it? I don't care what it is. You know, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's better eating, maybe you have an addiction. I don't care. But write a book, right? Whatever it is, you stop yourself. You have a conscious, subconscious conflict. So I just want you to think about that, right? This thing that you have a conscious, subconscious conflict. And again, kind of now think about someone you love, person, place, or thing, right? And where do you feel that love? Is it your heart? Is it your stomach? Is it your head? What color pops into your mind when you think about that? And is there a feeling? Is it warm or cool, or what do you feel? You know, so where do you feel it? What colors? Does it have a sound, right? All right, now just relax. Just let your mind relax from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Just let yourself relax. I'm not going to do a formal relaxation. Just get to the relaxed state. And now what I'd like you to do, imagine in your mind's eye that part of you that wants to change, the part of you that wants to learn this, wants to make this change, right? And only you know what it is. And now you know the reasons you want to make this change. It'll basically, to sum it up, this part of you wants to change because it's going to make you safe, healthy, happy, and secure. In some way, it's going to make you more safe, healthy, happy, and secure, because that's the driver of all of our behaviors. It wants us to be safe, healthy, happy, and secure. And it could be whatever it is, right? Now what I'd like you to do is just thank this part, really thank this part, right? And there may be other reasons you want to make this change that you're not consciously aware of, and that's okay. But underneath it, you want to be safe, healthy, happy, and secure. It might help you make more money. It might help you have a better relationship, a better body, better health, or whatever it is. But underneath it, it's to be safe, healthy, and happy and secure. So I'd like to thank this part, and I would like you to thank this part. It only wants what's best for you. Now what I'd like you to do is imagine that part of you that fights this change for whatever reason. Now you may know some of the reasons: fear of change, fear of the other people around you. Only you need to know what they are. But just let this part also take a color, a shape, a sound, a feeling, whatever pops in your mind. And it's the part that holds you back from achieving this goal. Now I'd like you to thank this part also, because we may not like what it's done or kept you stuck, but it's done it for a reason: fear, apprehension. And underneath it, it's probably stopped you because it thinks by helping you, it will stop you from being safe, healthy, happy, and secure. Now, really, what I'd like you to do is realize that many times as we're growing up, we learn things that were not intended. I mean, a child may learn, like, clean your plate because people are starving in some place, right? So the parent means don't be wasteful. But the child, this little person within us, learned, oh, I have to eat everything. So now you can't stop overeating. Many times people, mislearn things, and it doesn't have to make sense. So what I'd like you to do is look at all of the learnings around this part of you that's stopping it. And only you need to know what these are, right? And see if in any way, shape, or form, maybe you mislearned some things, right? Because sometimes it was just the interpretation of a parent or an authority figure or something like that. Now I invite this part to release this event, anything that may be holding you back. And you may be able to see these old events and the beliefs and the attitudes in a new light, kind of like changing the light. So now you can relearn what it needs to take care of yourself even better. Maybe you can see through what was learned to what was intended. That's right. So you can take care of yourself even better. Now what I'd like you to do is let these two parts face each other in your mind's eye, each part acknowledging the other. Many people realize that, and notice that these parts are both a part of you. So they may be connected by like a bond of energy or a string of energy or light, because each one wants what's best for you. They want you to be safe, healthy, happy, and secure. So at the highest level, they have the same intent. Now they've been fighting. So what I'd like you to do is watch and listen to these valuable parts of yourself, because each one has something you need. And allowing these two parts to come together only as fast as these two parts can blend and integrate in ways most comfortable and useful to you, in such a way that neither part loses anything, regaining the usefulness, the importance of both parts, because by the merger, they'll be stronger. And each part getting from the other things that it needs. The part of you that fights this change can use its stubbornness, drive, and all of that to keep you once you make the change. And so as they assimilate these changes, you may also be surprised by the image it's created as these two energies finally join into one. And you notice what this new energy and image looks like, sounds like, and feels like. And it has combination power between both of them. And it may have additional skills and capabilities and talents that you couldn't even imagine or guessed at. And you can enjoy in new ways of accomplishing things. And as these parts blend together now, there'll be no part of you that fights this change. No part of you will fight this change. You're ready to grasp this. And when you're ready, imagine this part coming into yourself, into that place where you feel love for that person, place, or thing we talked about earlier. So it becomes a part of you and all of your behaviors, easily accessible to you. And it will be as true for you as the love for this person, place, or thing. And as you feel this surge of energy ripping through you, you can think of times and places in the future where these integrated capabilities will be fully at your disposal. Good. So open your eyes, come on back. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you're coming back, I did the technique that you'll get in the handout when you send me your email or shoot me an email. I did it exactly like it's written. Of course, in the real world, if I was doing it in the client session, it might be a little bit different because, you know, I've been doing this for almost 40 years, but I like to do it exactly the way it's written so you can experience the way it's written. I pretty much followed the script. I redid this technique as a script to help you make those changes. Now, one of the things I do within this script, if you will, within the visual squash, is it's almost like a mini regression. It's almost like a mini regression. And what it is, it's a mini one. I like regression's okay. I don't necessarily think it's the end all of everything, but this mini regression kind of does what I call changing personal history, right? Which we may go back and do. But so let's say it's an addiction. So maybe this person grew up hearing, you know, tell you one I know exactly, real men drink, real men can handle their liquor, don't trust a man that doesn't drink. That every time they saw their parents or people around them having fun, they were drinking, right? So the problem state in this is deep in their heads. Well, I want to quit drinking now. I want to quit using, but I'll never be trustful. I won't be a real man. I'll never have fun again. All these other things. That's why they would be stuck, right? And so by doing like a mini change history where they go back and look at that, where did they learn that, right? And it was basically the limits of the people that taught them that. You know, we always forget that we are taught by the limits of those that are teaching us. So if that was what their parents or the people around them thought, that's what got stuck in their heads, right? So it's kind of a mini regression without going formal, right? And you don't have to go into it, right? I'm not going to do that. I just put the change history in there because that's kind of built in to this. Now, sometimes in the middle of it, if while I'm asking those Metamodel questions, it comes up that, you know, they're from a substance abusing family. All of the things I just said is in there. While I would be doing this visual squash, I would go ahead and I would do a mini change history right there, right? That, you know, that right around the step of step 4, you know, where you mislearn information. Let's go back and look at that. This is what your parents said. This is what the authority figures say, yada, yada, yada. You know, and another way to look at it, how many times people, especially when it comes to food, you know, maybe they learned you got to clean your plate because people are starving. You were taught to eat something to feel better. You know, I made this just for you because I love you. Therefore, if you do not eat the food, you're showing that you do not love the person, yada, yada, yada. So there's things you may have to relearn. And the best way to do that is in changing personal history, which is built into the step that if I can avoid doing it, I always try to do less is more, kind of like film acting, right? What they always say in film acting, less is more. Don't do too much, do less. Let the people fill it in. That's actually a great analogy for, to me, a lot of therapy. If you do less, let the client fill it in. You, you know, just by saying they're on, I'll get off this topic in a moment, the mini part of visual squash where that you mislearned information. They may go back and do a complete rewrite of their personal history. They may go back to a couple of initial sensitizing events for people that are into that kind of thing. They may do their brain knows what it needs to do. If you have good energy, good intention, you've gathered good information, you're loving and you're supportive, you can just, a lot of it, they will fix themselves. So there's that, right? Now, the other technique I wanted to teach today, it's the new behavior generator, the classic old-fashioned new behavior generator, right? Been around forever. You know, I remember this was the technique when I learned it in my basic NLP. It made me realize, NLP is really nothing new. It's kind of repackaged, because this technique, not quite written this way, but pretty close, is in Maxwell Maltz's Psycho-Cybernetics, the theater of the mind, where you watch a movie, step into it. This just kind of jazzed it up. And so what Bandler, Grinder, David Gordon, Schmidt, Stephen Connie Ray Andreas, who else was in that first group? Can't think of his name. There was a few others. They kind of synthesized all these other things and put them together. So the new behavior generator is that, right? And this is important for an addiction, because many of the people with an addiction that are having trouble kicking an addiction, they need a model of what it's like to live without an addiction. Especially, let's say they come from a substance abusing family. Their mom or their dad or both drank, all the people around them drank. Maybe they have a job where everybody after work, they go to the bar, you know, I would say construction work, but you see office workers do it. It's like, how many times do you see that? Because someone with a drinking or drug problem will hang out with people with drinking or drug problems. You know, it's not unusual. If you're a heavy drink, if you talk to a heavy drinker, they say, I'm a whatever, steel worker, auto worker, iron worker, actor, writer, salesman, Wall Street. We work hard and we play hard. We're, you know, it's bullshit. But you know, if you're a drinker, you will set or if you're a substance abuser, you will set your reticular activating system to find the people that are substance abusers. So you can walk into I worked with a guy who was worked on Wall Street, was a broker. And he said, you know, when he first sobered up, and it was alcohol and cocaine, that was his attitude. Well, I can't work anymore because everybody does it. Well, after he didn't go away to treatment, he just started to change. And he was lucky enough he could change jobs. And I said, well, right before you change jobs, you know, we did a whole process of, well, we did the visual squash. We did everything we're talking about. I said, well, you have the chance to reinvent yourself, because at this new job, you know a few of those people, but you don't know them like you know the guys you've worked with for 5 years, right? He goes, well, some of them, yeah, I'd see at the bar or this or that. He goes, but you don't know them, right? So you have a chance to reinvent yourself, because to them, you're a blank slate. You don't have to be Party Joe that you were at your old office, the guy that could find, you always had the cocaine, you always knew where the good, you know, you could score, you knew the after hours clubs, all this other stuff, right? And I said, this new one, what if you go in that, like, you're just clean and sober. You do the work, you make more money, you're just clean and sober. And you don't judge the people that are partying, the young, crazy, you know, young brokers that are like, you know, all coked up and everything. Good for them. That's going to be you. Right? Well, he didn't have a model. Right? So I'm like, okay. So after we did this, and he you know, he's getting ready to switch jobs. I said, well, what I'd suggest, because he had a couple of offers, he goes, I go pick the one. If I'm not giving feedback, but it might be smart to pick the one where you know the least people, you know. I goes, okay. And he did go to some 12-step meetings where, near Wall Street. And of course, you go to meetings around Wall Street, if you're in the 12-step world, you're going to run into some brokers that are clean and sober. You know, some are just trying, but there's some probably with a lot of sobriety, right? I know for a fact there's some AA and NA, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous meetings in the theater district of New York, right? And like on Friday and Saturday night, especially, I think one's at midnight, because if you're doing a Broadway shut down now, but if you're doing a Broadway show and the show's over, well, that's where a lot of people, you know, it's 10:30, 11 o'clock, and you just finished a performance. You're not ready to go to sleep, right? You don't have to be back at the theater till, you know, your call times, you know, might be 1 o'clock if you have a matinee. And if it's a night show, you don't have to anyway. So how do you unwind, you know? And so there's some AA meetings at midnight, right? And it's always full of actors and usually like service people that are, you know, like waiters and waitresses, which may also be actors. So, if I was going to try to coach a young actor that had a problem, I'd say maybe go there, because then you can run into some actors that are clean and sober. There's a whole lot, because we can find them. They're in the media. But this broker guy went to some meetings, and there were guys, he met a few people that he goes there. I said, now just start going and listen to what people say, because I was helping him do this new behavior generator. I said, find somebody you like what they say. They seem successful. You know, they've been clean and sober a while. And I said, that's all I want you to do. Find a couple of examples. And he did. He comes back, yeah, there's some guys there. You know, one was a couple years older, but not, you know, 2 or 3, not like, or maybe 5, not like a decade older. And the guy had been sober for a long time, you know, was very successful as a broker, or whatever it was, stock, whatever it was. And I said, okay, let's use that, right? And because what he needed was a model, and he didn't have one. He got into being a broker right out of college, and he ran with the party crowd. So he had no and places he chose to work was like that Wolf of Wall Street. That was the kind of places he liked to work. And so he had no models. And this can be true for guys. I remember when I grew up around the steel mills, there were the guys that got, they get a job in the steel mill at 18, 19 years old. And, you know, by 21, 22, they bought a house, they had a new car, because they're making great money back then. They still make good money. They're making great money. And then the other guys that go to work in the steel mill, 18 or 19, 22, 23, they're still like sharing apartments with 3 or 4 people, because they're partying all their money away, because they're hanging out with the partiers. So what you have to do is find a model, right? And again, if you come from a substance abuse family, or it runs rampant everywhere, where are you going to find that model? And again, this is why, you know, I tell people, don't be too judgmental of the 12-step program, because it may be the only place where someone can find a model of success. So here's the step, and let's just do it. Just do the group. I like that. So what I'd like you to do is think about a talent or ability or skill you would like to be better at. Of course, if we were doing addictions, I'd say, like, you know, not drinking, not drugging, whatever it is. But whatever it is you want to do better. Maybe you want to be a better therapist, better hypnotist, better NELPer, a better writer, whatever it is. So think about a talent, ability, a skill you'd like to be better at. And now pick a person that you want to model. Now, you don't have to know them personally, but they have the talents, abilities, and skills that you would like. Sometimes I say you don't want to know them too intimately, right? Because if you do, you might know some of the problems that they have, but just they're good at what they do, right? Now what I want you to do is take a deep breath, close your eyes. And as you do, you've already worked through. Now, no part of you is going to fight this change. I'm linking this back to our first thing, that you want to make this change. So now what I want you to do is imagine you're in a magic movie theater, like the Ministry of Magic from Harry Potter. And you watch a movie of your model doing the things you want to do, the things you want to master. Now watch the movie again and make sure to notice the nuances and details, and notice how comfortable they are performing this activity. Whatever it is you want to do that your model does well, you notice they do excellently. If we were working with addictions, you see how this person can say no to themselves and other people. They have no thoughts or desires for the drink or the drug. da, 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 da. But for what you're doing, your model does this easily and effortlessly, and they perform this activity. Now watch the movie again, and you see your model's energy, if you will, their aura or their life force. Notice the color, the vibration, the sound, their connection to the universe that gives them this special way of being. And notice that the more that they seem to give it away, the more that they have. It's an energy flowing through them. There's no shortage. Great. And now watch the movie one more time. Again, notice the nuances, the head movements, the breathing, how comfortable they are, their energy, their aura. And it's almost like you can see through part of the movie, and you see all the, I call it homework that the person did, the rehearsals, the coaching, the practicing, whatever it is that they did to get that good. They work at it. They do the work behind the scenes. Now watch the movie again, but this time you replace the image of your model. It's like you cut them out and you put your own picture up there, and watch yourself perform everything the exact same way your model did. And you even keep their energy so it blends into you, because they left their energy, their aura, their thoughts, their behaviors, their beliefs. They're freely giving it to you. Now watch the movie again, noticing how the nuances and details comfortably merge with you, and how you're now becoming comfortable as you really absorb this life force, this energy, this new you. And now take a deep breath and step into the movie, and you play the main character. Step right into that special energy and you absorb it deep into your core, and do all the things that you witness your model doing from the inside out, through their eyes, through your eyes. You can still kind of notice the movie, but you're in it, 3D, and you run it over and over again quickly in your mind. Good. Absorb it into your core. Good. And now you may notice times and places in the future where this new behavior becomes natural and normal. In fact, the old you that was struggling at this is no longer who you are. In fact, you may begin to say and feel, that's not who I am anymore. That's not who I am anymore. Good. Good. All right. Cool. So take a deep breath. Exhale. Open your eyes. Come on back. All right. All right. Cool. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. Okay. Does anybody have a question, comment, anything they want to say, mention? Those are the two top while you're thinking about it, right? Well, there's actually three. The way you gather the information, you pre-frame the information gathering, especially for an addiction, right? You set it up with do you feel like there's a conflict? Part of you wants to, part of you doesn't. Great. Then when you go into the questions, that's reforming their mind even more. And then the two techniques I would do the most, excuse me, are the visual squash, and then the new behavior generator, and then the one we did last week with the flip. So actually you have 4 little techniques that will help with addictions. It's not an addiction course, but it's kind of an addiction overview that kind of gives you a different viewpoint.
I have a question for you, Dr. Walkerton.
Yes.
What happened with a client who eventually say to you, sorry, I don't have imagination, I can't see the movie, it's impossible for me to follow your directions? Thank you very much.
Good question. That happens rarely to me, to be honest with me. To be honest with you, it happens every once in a while, and I just say play along. Just play along.
It happened to me. I just asked the client to just carry on and report to me what were the thinkings in his mind during this exercise in order to have the material to carry on working with that. But, you know, sometimes you can find clients saying, well, I don't have imagination, and you have to work a little bit further to make them understand that actually we all have the capability for imagining.
Yeah. It's rare though. Yeah. But yeah, I just say, just let's plow through this. See where it takes you. Miss Carol, you have a question?
Yes. Well, to maybe assist on the last question, sometimes I think what is happening, because this is me, I'm not primarily visual. And so that movie theater setting can be difficult. And that's when they're probably saying, I can't do this, or I can't imagine it. So if you redirect to focus on the feelings, focus on what you're hearing, focus on all the other modalities that would be replaced if you were blind. You know, sometimes they just need that redirection. I guess it's a very minor part of the population of people that don't actually visualize.
Yeah.
But I happen to be part of that. So that's how I compensate.
Yeah, I would just, that's good. Yeah, focus, because you're really going for a feeling. But
yes.
Cool. Any other comments, questions on this beautiful Saturday? In America, as we're coming out of lockdown, well, there's at least two people from other countries I see, and they're coming out of lockdown. And Manwari's from India. They're coming out of lockdown. No other questions? No comments? I will save the chat, and if I don't have your email, put your email.
Sorry, just a last question.
Sure.
Do you ask your client to come sober to work with you?
Yes.
I mean, do you have any kind of, tough rules? Say, well, in order to work with me, you can't drink for the last 2 or 3 hours or something like that.
Yes, I have that. It's a couple of days. And if they can't do a couple of days, they need to go to detox.
Yeah.
Because if they're under the influence, they're under the influence.
So you ask them to be a couple of days dry. Okay.
Yeah. And just like a lot of the stage hypnotists I know, I don't think anybody on the call is primarily a stage hypnotist. There's the fine line of a person having 1 or 2 drinks and being too drunk to do the stage show. And I've had that happen where they end up falling asleep. They're useless up on the stage. But if they're coming in for substance abuse, you already know that they're, and if they can't not drink for 2 days, I would say you might need to go to detox.
Okay. How do you redirect for detox? You redirect your client, you refer your client to a detox clinic.
Yeah, or their medical doctor to go through.
Okay, thank you.
But also too, I always stress to people, because everybody's terrified of like people detoxing. Do you know the #1 place in the world where people detox from alcohol and drugs?
Mm-hmm. No, please.
Jails.
Okay.
And the cops don't give a shit that you're in DTs, right? I mean, it's just people detox all the time, because part of the psych community and a lot of alcohol and drug companies, oh, you got to do. I'm like, I don't know. I know a lot of guys, they detox in jail. They get a DUI and they've been drunk for a couple of weeks and they're locked up. So I'm not saying it's not scary, and I do stress, now I'll flip the other coin. more people die from alcohol withdrawal than everything else, but it's people, you know, but more people detox on their own, either in jail or they just quit. They run out of money. But yeah, for treatment, going back to the question, if you're going to come in, I ask that you have not had a drink for a day or two at least, so we can begin to work, you know. And even when I worked in, give you my viewpoint, unsolicited anyway, is even when I worked in rehabs and treatment centers, I was always one of the ones that pushed for no pharmacological detox if you're coming off alcohol or drugs. Some of the people, no, like step down, you know, give them Valium and bring them down slowly. I'm like, no! I want them to remember this experience as painful. You know, because I've seen that people go through a nice detox. It wasn't that bad. Then they go back out drinking or drugging. Then they get arrested. They're in county jail. They're not getting the Valium in the county jail. They're getting bologna sandwiches and cold coffee. For those of us that's been in a county jail, can tell you that's how they feed you. And you're sweating and throwing up. You know, that's why they call it the drunk tank. You know, they throw you in the drunk tank, which, you know, most big counties still have it. So anyway, cool. No other questions, comments? Okay, people are giving me their stuff. Deborah quickly. Cool. Anybody else? Cool. Nothing on this beautiful Saturday? All right. Well,
Thank you, Dr. Will.
That's it for today. We'll see you all as we keep trudging the road to destiny. I just wanted to do it fast. A couple quick examples. I'll post this up on YouTube. When I send those emails out, I'll let everybody know I'll give them the YouTube link. And so you can watch the video again if you want, but the scripts are pretty easy to do. They're just like a script. You know, and I always tell people when you're first learning a technique or something, feel free to just use it like a checklist. You know, in fact, I got to post it. There was a thing on Scully, the Captain Scully from the airline, you know, the crash into the Hudson. And he talked about how he reverted to his training. And those of us that study success will always say a very successful people always uses the word I when they're associating into things they did well, right? And then they'll disassociate from other things. But when you watch this little video when he's talking about it, that he reverted to his training, this is what I was trained to do, this is what I did, but it was revert to his training. And in another video, he talked about, thank God he had, 20,000 hours of practicing reaching up and switching on that. What do they say that saved everybody's life? The auxiliary power unit is what saved everybody's life. Because if he'd have hesitated 10 more seconds, it wouldn't have worked, and they would have probably crashed into Manhattan itself, which wouldn't have ended well, right? So it's the training. So, and how do you do that? You go down the checklist. You do it, you do it, you do it. So anyway, all right, everyone. I will see you all soon. Some of you on Monday. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend.